Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. And today, I want to talk about AI psychosis. Now, this one's interesting. If you've been a long-time listener or viewer of mine or listen to my radio show, you may not know, if you haven't been listening to me, that AI has been linked to severe mental crises, right? Users are spiraling into delusions or ending up in basically being committed into psychiatric institutions. We've even seen suicides as a result of artificial intelligence, and on and on and on. And as I just mentioned, I've talked about this before, but there is one aspect that basically has gone underreported, in my opinion, and I think until now. So, this is actually really interesting, and we're going to be talking about Caitlyn Nurr. Now, she wrote an essay for Newsweek where she discussed her experience as head of user experience at an AI image generator startup. This is a gig that she says pulled her into the throes of an AI-induced mental health breakdown. Now, Nurr said it all began on the job when she spent upwards of 9 hours a day prompting basically all day long. So we're talking about, though, 2023 era generative AI systems, not 2025. So these basically were faux humans, and these were images that had spat out, but they were often mangled and twisted, but it still, quote unquote, felt like magic to her, at least at first. And we remember that era. That was when we got like 8 fingers on a hand, or, everything was kind of messed up. You could totally tell it was AI generated because, your kid didn't have 6 figures, but clearly used AI to clean him or her up, that kind of thing. Quote, within a few months, that magic turned manic. Now, Nurr wrote that those early images, quote, started to distort my body perception and overstimulate my brain in ways that were genuinely harmful to my mental health. However, even when the AI learned to take it easy on the number of fingers it generated on a human hand, its images still took on a mental toll, trading anatomical errors for scenes inhabited by impossibly slim and beautiful figures. According to the article that I'm cribbing from here, quote, seeing AI images like this over and over again rewired my sense of normal. When I look at my real reflection, I'd see something that needed correction, end quote. In other words, it's the same thing that I've talked about in terms of body image when you're talking about teenage girls and the sheer absolute mental damage that Instagram has had. When the Kim Kardashians aren't telling the world that they're photoshopped, imagine being, that 14, 15-year-old girl in an awkward phase, seeing that and thinking that's an impossible beauty standard, but clearly she did it when clearly she didn't. That's a huge issue, even for adults. And at one pivotal moment, Nurr even began experimenting with AI images depicting herself as a fashion model. But the interesting part about this is that was actually a directive set down by the company she was working for, which was pursuing users that were interested in fashion. Quote, I caught myself thinking, if I only looked like my AI version. I was obsessed with becoming skinnier, having a better body, and perfect skin, end quote. So by virtue of that, she began losing sleep in order to generate more and more images, which she called addictive because each image triggered a, quote, small burst of dopamine, end quote. And yeah, it was the same with the like button and all that kind of stuff. This is how social media basically addicts us, and AI is doing the same thing. This is social media 2.0, and it's vastly more interactive, but we just apparently haven't learned the lessons from the last round, or I should say really the first one. So, though Nurr had basically been successfully treating her bipolar disorder prior to her foray into AI fashion modeling, this new obsession basically spun it into a, quote, manic bipolar episode, end quote, which said triggered an episode of psychosis. Quote, when I saw an AI-generated image of me on a flying horse, I started to believe I could actually fly. The voices told me to fly off my balcony, made me feel confident that I could survive. This grandiose delusion almost pushed me to actually jump, end quote. And fortunately, she caught herself, realized the issue, and began reaching out to friends and family and all of that, and a clinician helped her realize that her work had triggered essentially the spiral, leading her to leave that AI startup. Quote, I now understand what happened to me wasn't just a coincidence of mental illness and technology. It was a form of digital addiction from months and months of AI image generation, end quote. And yes, and there are going to be people out there that have bipolar disorder, other mental illnesses, these kinds of things. Those that go untreated are the ones that tend to have it worse off or do crazy things, untreated school shooters. But those that actually get proper help do tend to be perfectly fine. The meds actually do help. As Kanye West when he goes back on them. So as I'm looking at this, we all have different sets of addiction. Some people can be addicted to one thing or other. Some people think they're immune to addiction, but maybe they're immune to one type of addiction, but not another. The point here is that what we have in artificial intelligence is something that is insanely versatile, incredibly flexible, can essentially deliver what you want it to deliver, whether you need it or not, and quite frankly, they're sycophantic, right? So they're going to make you feel good even for asking a basic question. And so I think this is something that we need to take care of. We've already damaged very badly the later millennials, Gen Z, and now Gen Alphas coming up behind them. And this, quite frankly, is something that we need to address. This cannot go completely unchecked because they want to make $1, selling, what we're telling the AI to advertisers or psychologist studies or whatever. So this is a big problem. Just be aware of this. And if you have a loved one or a friend that seems to be obsessed with this or is constantly generating images of themselves, maybe have a conversation, maybe guide them to some professional help. I think it's important that we all look out for each other. And so with that, best of luck to us all. And we'll see what happens with AI. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private, informed, and secure. Take care.